What is up, fellow Birds fans? I know it's been a few weeks since I did a vid for the season of the fan series. Apologies on that. I just got kind of wrapped up in the holidays and lazy. Yeah, but anyhow, of course, a lot's happened since the last vid. The Eagles, of course, wrapped up a playoff spot, the 7 seed, the wild card, and yeah, I know. Believe me, I know we've heard it for the past couple weeks. Lucked their way in. Who did they play? This quarterback, that quarterback off the street, that quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Listen, at the end of the day, you still have to win the games that you have to win to have a shot at the playoffs. And that's what they did. And, it's not the Eagles' fault that those other teams had COVID issues or injury issues or just issues. You still gotta, you got to play the game that's in front of you. They didn't make up the schedule, right? The league does that. So, yeah, the front end of the schedule was pretty front loaded with, the Tampa Bays, the Kansas Cities, the 49ers, all those teams. And at the end of the season, as it is with every other team, you play division games. Now, yeah, I mean, the Eagles played against the football team a couple times. They played the Giants. They played, the Dallas game there at the end there when nothing was really on the line and they sat guys. But, listen, I mean, they had to still win those games. And let's not forget the first Washington game was moved to that Tuesday night, and then they had a short week to play the Giants, and then they had to play, again in Washington the week after. So yeah, I mean that wasn't the most easiest of things to do. I don't care who the other teams had. You're playing on a short week, and you're playing a team that you played 2 times in 3 weeks. That's tough. Particularly when you talk about divisional games and divisional rivalry games, right? And yeah, they weren't easy games. I mean, the Eagles had deficits they had to come back from. Slow starts, which has been a bugaboo, which is something hopefully they clean up today. But the bottom line, end of the day, they won the games they had to win. They got a little help with Minnesota losing, and they got into the playoffs. And listen, this is fast forward. No one expected this. I didn't expect this. I'll raise my hand. Festival raised the paw. I mean, this playoffs this year was not expected. When you have a new head coach, you have a inexperienced for the most part quarterback, you have some other young players on the team, a young coaching staff. Making the playoffs in year one really is not expected. In fact, you look at all the other teams with first-year head coaches, they're not in the playoffs. The Eagles are the only team, if I'm remembering correctly, with a first-year head coach that's in the playoffs this year, 7 seed or not. They made it in. They're in the dance. They're one of the final 7 teams in the NFC to make the playoffs, and that's commendable. Listen, you see it every week, right? You see these teams losing the games they had no business losing to, right? The Colts, with everything on the line, went to Jacksonville against a horrible Jaguars team and lost that game when they had much more talent than that Jaguar team did. Our old good buddy Carson there wetting the bed, right? So it matters not to me who the Eagles played and who they had to beat to get into the playoffs because they won those games. And that shows a lot about the team. That's that mental makeup that this team has. And yes, they do have some veterans who have been there, who have a little, bling on their finger from Super Bowl 52. And, yeah, I mean, they're leaders on this team that kind of pulled everything together. And the fact is, yeah, I mean, Nick Sirianni in his first season did a heck of a job. Kept the ship afloat when it very well could have sank after that Las Vegas game or even after that Chargers game. When I pretty much threw my hands up in the air and said, all right, let's just go for the picks, whatever. Let's just, lose. It's okay. Get the better draft picks and whatnot, But then as you go on a run, as a fan, I mean, yeah, you want to see the team win. And it really doesn't matter who they're playing. The fact is, if they still have a shot to get in, you want to see them in. Now, they are playing against a tough team right off the bat. And listen, they're a 7 seed. Whoever you play now is going to be tough. It just so happens that you're playing against the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that guy, we have a little history with him in playoffs in years past, right, including Super Bowl 52, Super Bowls 39 and 52, of course, Tom Brady. I might remind Dallas fans that, one of us has had experience against him in the playoffs. One of us has. The other, not so much. But anyhow, boy, if the Niners can just win, if Dallas loses, I love the 1995 reminder for them. All those bandwagon local fans that only talk after wins in this year. Oh, that not you mentioned 1995 to them, and a lot of them weren't even born in 1995, the last time Dallas won. Oh boy, I love that. That's still something that just I enjoy doing. So I'm hoping we can continue that trend this year. And Dallas loses in the playoffs. So, 1995 VHS tapes. Yeah, it's fun. It's the little things in life, right? But anyhow, yeah, they're playing against a tough opponent. But listen, they're playing against an opponent that does come into this game hobbled. And I know, listen, the outlying fact is still going to be throughout this whole thing, but they have Tom Brady, right, as their quarterback. They have the GOAT as their quarterback, and as long as he's there, they're going to have a shot at success and a shot at winning games in the playoffs. Yeah, absolutely. But the fact still is he's without some pretty big weapons. When you talk about Godwin, you talk about Brown, two of his more reliable receivers. He still has Mike Evans there. They still have Gronk. Obviously, lots of success with those guys. But you're without some of your other really good, talented wideouts, and they're without their top two running backs. Leonard Fournette is a huge loss for them because for as great as Tom Brady is, and he is the GOAT, no doubt about that. One of the things that really helped the Bucs in their Super Bowl run last season was playoff Lenny, was Leonard Fournette. That big power back, gets you those tough yards every time you need him, right? Big touchdowns that he scored for them, right? He's one of those back-breaking type of running backs where in the fourth quarter, he just wears out opposing defenses, and he really shines, right? In the second half of games and in the fourth quarter when you need it, he's giving them those tough yards. They don't have that now. And I don't know if the running backs who they do have are going to be able to do the type of things that Leonard Fournette was able to do. That's a big loss. And again, I understand they have Tom Brady, and that's the outlier to this whole thing, right? They still got Brady, they still got Evans, they still got Gronk, right? They got the big three still there. But without Leonard Fournette, who is a huge part of that offense, that might hurt more than losing a Godwin and Brown, because you still have Brady throwing the ball. Now, if you can just, again, and if the Bucs don't have success running the ball and you just make them one-dimensional, and I know that one dimension is pretty good with Tampa, right, with Brady, it's still, you have a shot. You have a shot to hopefully get that offense off the field. Now, how do you also keep that offense off the field? This is what I've been saying all week. This is the biggest thing that the Eagles must do. They got to do what they're so good at doing, and long drives. They have, and I know I'm biased, they have the best offensive line in the league. They have the best run-blocking offensive line in the league. They found their identity about a little over midway through the season, right, when they started to rack off some wins here. What did they do? They ran the ball. They pounded the ball. Old school. It's old school as it comes. It's as vanilla as it comes. But they do have the RPO system in place, but they run the ball. And it didn't matter if it was Sanders or Howard or Scott or Gainwell, whoever it was. You could throw a guy in there, and they're having positive yards because this offensive line is incredible, right? You have future, in my mind, Hall of Famer Jason Kelce as your center. You have Lane Johnson. You have Mulata. You have Dickerson. I mean, these guys have all produced this season. You have a couple all-pros on that offensive line. Use it. Use it, use it, use it. I know Tampa's defense and what they do, but listen, really the last part of the season, Tampa Bay's run defense has not been as good. A lot of their numbers and where they are in the standings, the overall standings defensively, is based off what they did for a little over half the season. But really, since that, Tampa's run defense has not been that good. Now, Vita Vea is still very good, and you don't want to just run into him, okay? But on the outside, they're not as strong. They've given up an average of 109 yards on the ground in the last 5 weeks, I believe, with a 5-yard per carry clip. I mean, think about that, 5 yards per carry clip. Now, a lot of those games may have been they had a lead and the other teams had to throw the ball and what have you, right? You don't want that. You don't want the fact you don't want to come into this game, the Eagles, and have a slow start the way they've been doing in recent weeks, right? Because then that puts you behind the 8 ball, and then you can't go to your strength, which is running the ball primarily, right? But again, run the football. Don't try to do something. Listen, I know when you play Tom Brady, you try to do something, you try to make up things and get real creative and just try to do things that you're just not, right? You try to outthink yourself, right? All those years playing against the Patriots, right, in the Super Bowl, and teams would just try to outthink themselves to play them, right? And try to just come up with things and make up things because it's the Patriots, because it's Brady and Belichick, right? Instead of just going with what the strength of their team was and just playing with that. And I know back then the Patriots defense would try to take that strength away, but still, teams would just outthink themselves all the time, and it still is true today when you play against Brady. You know, teams are just keep trying to outthink it, keep trying to reinvent the wheel, instead of just going what their strength is. And again, for the Eagles, the strength of this team is running the football, is that offensive line in front of Jalen Hurts and the running backs. Use them. Use them. They're road graders. All of them. They're physical at the point of attack. They also have not had a lot of penalties lately, and that's a good thing, too. That's something you don't want to do today, too. Because if you can stay ahead of the chains instead of behind the chains, that's going to help you a lot, obviously. And I'm saying a lot of things here that are just duh kind of stuff, right? But, yeah, I mean, you don't want to try to reinvent who you are going into this game. They know who they are. The Bucs know who they are, too. But go with it. Use it. You have that offensive line. There's stallions in front of them, workhorses in front of them. Use them because those guys are gonna pave the road against even a defense like Tampa. And Tampa has some guys coming back from injury. They're not going to be as fresh. They're not going to be as game shape ready, perhaps. So it's a different defense than what the Eagles played earlier in October in the season when they lost to Tampa 28-21 at Lincoln Financial Field. Now that game, listen, there was a lot of things about that game. Long time ago, the Eagles didn't know what their identity was at that time. The Eagles ran the ball, if I remember, 9 times in that game. Yeah, that all contributed to a loss. You don't want to do that. Now they know who they are. They know what the strengths of this offense are, and you got to go with it. And you got to keep going with it. And again, run the football, use that clock, use the clock, chew it away, time of possession, keep Brady and Evans and Gronk and whoever they have on offense on the sidelines watching. Maybe Brady gets annoyed and throws a one of those iPads or whatever, as he did against the Saints. I mean, keep our offense on the field and their offense off the field. And that's as good defense as you're going to play. Probably better a defense than even your defense can play against that offense, right? Long scoring drives. Hopefully that end in touchdowns, right? Don't settle for field goals. You got to end those drives with touchdowns. Long scoring drives. Keep Brady on the sidelines. Keep that offense on the sidelines. And you have a good chance of winning this game. Now, defensively, listen. They're not going to reinvent who they are. This is not an overly aggressive blitzing defense. And actually, in today against Brady, that's not a horrible thing. I know the whole talk all week long is, oh, yeah, blitz him. You got to put pressure on, knock him down, hit him. Brady is one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game against the blitz. So the fact that the Eagles' defense doesn't blitz a whole lot actually helps them in this game. Because if you blitz a whole lot with Brady, you're going to get beaten. Because he knows how to beat a. You're not going to show him something he's never seen. He's been in the league for 100 years now. So you're not going to show him a look pre-snap that he's not going to be able to dissect before the ball's hiked. He gets rid of the ball quick. Besides the strip sack in Super Bowl 52. He does get rid of the ball pretty quickly. Thank goodness he didn't that one time, right? But he usually, he gets rid of the ball quick, and he's on the money. I mean, zip, zip, zip. He's throwing that ball to his receivers. And again, he's been in the league for so long, you're not going to fool him. The Saints do a pretty good job with him, but the Saints have the corners to do it because they're physical. They're physical at the snap against the receivers and the tight ends for the Bucs. They can play that kind of game. I don't know if the Eagles can. The Eagles' corners just aren't physical enough at the point of attack at the snap, and that's one of the reasons why the Bucs have had troubles in the regular season. I know they beat them in the playoffs last year, but at 0-4 in the regular season against that Saints defense, part of the reason is because the Saints corners and safety, our old buddy Malcolm Jenkins, is just they're physical and they out physical the Bucs receivers. It is a little scary. I mean, thinking about those offensive weapons going against our secondary. I know Big Play Slay has had an all-pro season, but outside of him, they really haven't had a whole lot else. I like the way Avonte Maddox has played this season. I think he's really played well. Listen, I mean, it's not something that you're going to get better at overnight, right? The pass rush has to be there. The linebackers, we know who they are. They get burned a lot. They're not great tacklers. These are concerns. All right, so you talk about the things that could be positives for this game. Some of the concerns could be on the defensive side of the ball. But again, this is where the offense has to show up. This is where they have to have those long scoring drives that keeps Tampa's offense off the field. And again, you don't want to turn the ball over. Now, the Eagles haven't been a big turnover offense this season, and hopefully that continues today, right? The Eagles, conversely, the Eagles' defense hasn't been a great takeaway defense, right? They've had their moments, but overall, they haven't been a great takeaway defense. You would love to see them get a few takeaways in this game, and for our offense to play as clean as you can, because any little thing that's going to help you is going to help you get this victory. As tough as it's going to be to get a win today, any little help that you can get, a takeaway here or there, not turning the ball over, the penalty situation hopefully favors Tampa instead of the Eagles. And I know, really, Tampa isn't a big penalized team either. So you're actually you're having a battle of two teams that really play clean for the most part, don't have a lot of penalties, don't hurt themselves. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, particularly when you're on the road. But again, every little thing is going to help. Don't hurt yourself. Don't have holding calls. Don't have false starts. Don't have, the illegal formations and pick plays that the Eagles have got hit on quite a few times this season, right? Again, you want to play as clean a game offensively as you can, and for no other reason than to keep that offense off the field. Even though they are hobbled with injuries and what have you, they're still dangerous. When you have number 12 back there, they're still dangerous. And you have 87 and 13. They're dangerous players, and they can hurt you. You let them on the field a lot for a prolonged period of time. You're gonna get hurt. You're probably gonna lose the game. So the biggest defense for the Eagles today is their offense. Long scoring drives, keeping good old Tom. Come on, Tom! On the sidelines, right? You want to keep those guys on the sidelines watching our offense operate, right? And again, that comes down to doing the things that they're so good at doing, right? The RPOs, running the football, chewing up the clock, chewing up the yards. This is what they are. It's old school. It's not exciting. It's not sexy, right, in football. But it has allowed this team to find their identity and to win the games that they had to win to get to this game today, to be in the playoffs. And again, that's a testament to the team. I mean, for the most part, if you look at the Eagles franchise, and I'll go back to since Jeffrey Lurie took ownership of the team, more seasons than not, it's been successful. It's ended in playoffs. Now, they've only had 2 Super Bowl runs, right? They lost one and won one. Thank goodness they won the one. But they're, for the most part, a successful franchise. I mean, they're in the hunt just about every year. When they have a really piss-poor season like last year, they tend to follow it up with a good year, at least a playoff season. And listen, what they did back in 2017 is an outlier. I mean, you go from not making the playoffs one year to winning the Super Bowl the next, right? That just doesn't happen. It happened that year. Everything worked out. The football gods finally smiled on us, right? All the things went their way, even with the injuries, and they went ahead and won a Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You don't go from having a losing season to a Super Bowl year very often. I know teams have done it. Obviously Tampa Bay, you get Tom Brady and all those players, right? They played fantasy football, and of course then they go ahead and win. But it doesn't happen that often. Usually it's a journey. Usually there's steps, and you're going up a ramp. You're building towards that crescendo. You're building towards that type of success, right? This season, it's a step. You're with a new head coach, coaching staff, new players. You have a young, inexperienced, for the most part, quarterback, right? You're building to something, okay? You just so happen you made the playoffs. Okay, so you took a step, a bigger step than a lot of us Eagle fans thought they were going to take this season, but they're there, okay? So regardless of what happens today, hey, hopefully they win, right? Win or lose, you took a step. And now it's about building based from that step and keep going up, right? And I know the whole Sirianni thing with the roots in the ground and flowers and everything, okay. But you're building to something. And that's usually the progression, the natural progression of these franchises, right? You got to build. You got to start someplace. Now, they had some veterans on the team. They had some guys that won Super Bowl 52. That's a great thing to have, right? Leaders in the locker room and such. But you're still building towards that ultimate goal. That happened in 2017. It doesn't always work that way, right? And usually you have to build to that, right? It just happened, And then the years since, it hasn't been as successful. They made the playoffs a few times, won a playoff game because of double doink in Chicago. But besides that, they haven't won a playoff game since. That just shows how hard it is to do it. Listen, after that 2017 year, we thought, hey, we have this thing made. Look at this team. We got this coach. We got these players. We're going to get players coming back from injury. We're going to be on our way for years to come, right? And they haven't been back to an NFC title game since that. It just shows how hard it is to win in this league unless you had that type of run that the Patriots had, or you just have an all-timer, at quarterback and coach, and it just works, the way it's worked in Green Bay for years. It's worked in other cities for years, right? You have these franchises that are just these charmed franchises that are just always in title games and making playoff runs, right? It doesn't always work that way. You really have to build. You have to be smart. And you have to build that way. I know Howie Roseman's come under a lot of fire, but you got to give the man credit where credit's due. I know he missed on some of those receivers. We're going to always lament not going after DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's never going to stop. It doesn't matter. The Eagles can win like 3 or 4 Super Bowls. We're still going to talk about, if they had Jefferson and Metcalf, right? But look at the players that they hit on, particularly on the offensive line. And I'll give them credit. Listen, it's a skill to find some of these guys. Look at all these teams in the league that go through offensive linemen like Tic Tacs. Okay, it doesn't always work, but the Eagles find a way to do it. That's the strength that they are able to do via the draft. They're able to get these guys in the draft. You take a flyer on a rugby player from Australia. Are you kidding me, Malata? And he could be an all-pro, going forward. He is a terrific left tackle, right? Landon Dickerson was a good pick, and there were people, you took him too early, he's injured, but he's one of the best guards in the league right now, and he can also play center, if when the time comes. I mean, Kelsey years ago, Johnson, all these guys, even the year they won the Super Bowl, they had backup guys come up and play great. Now, it's good drafting, but it's also good coaching. And you talk about, the job that they've done, that Stoutland's done since coming here. He's tremendous. And look, someone has to make the decision to bring the guy in, right? So a lot of it goes, a lot of our Philly ire, right, goes to Howie Roseman. But you also have to appreciate some of the things that they've done, and they for years have had a tremendous offensive line that just every year it's a marvel. I mean, they lose a guy, they lose all pro guys, other guys step up and they play well. I mean, Brandon Brooks was a big loss, and I know they've lost him, for some years. He just can't stay healthy. But it's like you don't even realize he's not there when you have other guys come in and fill in, and it's like, okay, here we go. We're still going to play our game because they're well coached, and that says a lot about the coaching staff, particularly Stoutland, and it says a lot about, the front office to see these guys out there to bring in for the coaching staff, right, and to keep these guys aboard. Right, because he could have gone back to Alabama. He could have had any job he wanted in college football, right? But they're able to keep him here, and that's to their credit, And Howie, listen, I'm not the biggest Howie fan when it comes to certain things, right? Some of the drafts, some of the decision making, right? But I will say this: he is a master at the trade. It's hard to out trade Howie. When you talk about the two trades that he made this offseason, moving moving Carson Wentz, and I know they had to eat some of that I understand that comes off the books this year, right? But you move him to the Colts, you get the Colts first round pick, which turns out to be a better pick because they, lo and behold, they don't make the playoffs. The Eagles do, right? The Colts don't make the playoffs with Wentz and all that talent that they have. They don't make the playoffs. They make some move with Miami to get their first round pick, right? They don't make the playoffs. The Eagles, of those three teams, right, the three first round picks the Eagles have, the Eagles are the team that made the playoffs. And those other teams didn't make the playoffs. But those are great moves. Now you have three first round picks. You can do a lot of things with those picks. You can parlay them for future picks. You can parlay them for a player, perhaps. You can pick three great players out of the draft, hopefully. And we know how he's making the picks. And you got to look at the defense this year in the draft and in the free agency. But this team, listen, this team, regardless of what happens today in Tampa, they're set up. They are so set up. They have tremendous draft capital, and they're going to have a lot of room under the cap to go out and get some players. This is just the beginning. And I know, listen, you never know what can happen, right? Injuries, COVID, who knows, right? But on paper, at least, we could do a paper. I get that. But this team is set up to make a run for many years to come because they're going to have that draft capital. I know Howie. I get it. But he has hit on some of those picks as well, right? They're going to have a lot of draft picks and they're going to have a lot of money to play with in free agency. They could be one of the big boys. And I know, listen, you can't just get guys in free agency. That's it. The draft is where it is. Free agency supplements those guys you get in the draft, right? But they're going to be able to do it. They're going to be able to do both things this offseason, more than likely. Anything barring moving all three first-round picks. They're going to have some good players in that draft there for them to be able to draft defensively and in other areas as well. And they'll be able to go out and make a move, perhaps on a veteran wide receiver, which I think is one of the things they really have to look at this offseason. And again, I don't want to really get in the offseason too much here because we're talking about before a playoff game, right? But regardless of what happens today, win or lose, they're set up. And I think we have to look at Howie and give a little acknowledgement to him for having them set up the way they are going forward for the years to come. Listen, the playoffs wasn't expected this year. This is unexpected. This kind of happened, So irregardless, I'm not saying I'll be happy. Oh, if they lose, it's all sunshine and rainbows. No, because you want to win the game. You're there. You might as well make the most of it. You might as well get a win, right? And see what you can do in the playoffs, right? But regardless of what happens today in Tampa, they're going to be there. They're set up. And I know we can talk about the quarterback, and I know we can talk about all this and that and the other thing, but they're there. And this has a chance to have some staying power here and to build something into a team that could be one of the better teams in the NFC and one of the better teams in all of the NFL in some years to come. They really could if they do this right. If they play this right and they hit on those picks and they do the things they have to do free agency wise, they really have a chance to be set up for years to come. And that's a great thing. I think we learned a lot about the coach so far this season. There was a lot of concerns early in the year, but I think he's proven himself as a good young coach in this league, good young head coach. Players listen to him. They play for him. And I said that about Doug Peterson years ago. Listen, that first year, the way that season ended, I said, I think we have a good one because those players played for him at the end. It was a losing season, but just how they played at the end of that year, you could tell they were playing hard, and his message was getting across to both the young players and the veterans on that team. And, of course, the next year they go ahead and win the Super Bowl, right? Amazing. But you could tell, and you could tell that about Sirianni. Now, is he going to be a Super Bowl head coach next season, this season? Hey, time's going to tell. But they play for him. They listen to him. His message, as interesting as it could be, it's gotten through to those players, including those veterans on the team, right? The Kelseys, the Johnsons, the Fletcher Coxes, all those guys. It's gotten through. That's a tough thing to do for a first-year head coach. That's tough Particularly when you have guys that have won with another head coach years ago. It's tough. It's tough to come into that locker room and have that voice carry. And that's something that Nick Sirianni's been able to do. And I tip the hat to him for that. I really do. We laughed about the flowers. Now it's flower power. All right? Right? It is what it is. They have played well for him, and his message has gotten through. He adjusted as well. And that's tough to do for a coach. Coaches don't want to adjust, right? It's their way or the highway, right? He adjusted. He found what the strength of this team was, and since adjusting to that offensively, they have gone on a run here, right? They've won a lot more games than they lost since that loss to the Chargers those many weeks ago, okay? So they have turned that page. And for first year to do that, that's damn impressive. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of these franchises. Listen, I know we live in our Eagles bubble, okay? And we just talk about what the Eagles do and what they don't do. I got my eyes around the league, and I see some of these other franchises. The Cincinnati Bengals won a playoff game for the first time in 30 years last night. 30 years. First playoff win. The Detroit Lions haven't won a playoff game since 1991. The Jacksonville Jaguars have never been to a Super Bowl. The Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. The Browns have never been to a Super Bowl. The Bengals have never won a Super Bowl, right? Many teams have never won a Super Bowl, right, to this point. The Texans as a franchise hasn't been in a title game, a conference title game. They haven't played for a Super Bowl, right? And there's other examples of this too. Even teams that have won in the past. I mean, the Giants are a laughing. I know they got rid of Judge, so we'll see what they do. They've been a laughingstock. The football team, they don't even know what their name is. They're going to figure it out in a couple of weeks. There's a team that won 3 Super Bowls. They were one of the teams of the 80s, right? One of the teams of that generation. They've stunk for years. Years. Think about this. How many playoffs has that team seen since Jeffrey Lurie took over as the owner of the Eagles? Not many. You can probably count on one hand how many times that team's been in the playoffs since then. They haven't won a Super Bowl since '92. Dallas, for all the big name players that they always get. 1995. That's not only the last time they played and won a Super Bowl, that's the last time they were in a conference title game, which I love to bring up. 1995. And, the Niners have had their trouble. The Steelers have had their trouble. The Packers have had, times of trouble years ago, right? Many years ago, right? All these great franchises, right? It happens. And the Eagles have had their own troubles, right? Years and years ago, back in the after they won in 1960, but then they had a long streak of losing, right? Until things started turning around in the late 70s and 80s in the Dick Vermeil years. Right, and then they had a little stretch there and Buddy, and then, obviously what they did once they got Andy Reid. And that was one of the first orders of business for Jeffrey Lurie, was to get that right head coach, and he did. And all those great years we enjoyed after that. I know it didn't end in a title, but they were always in the hunt. So listen, we've been very fortunate. As much as we do like to complain, and we do, and look, we have right to. There are things that this franchise does that we will complain about. We have a right to do that. We're fans. Fan is short for fanatic. That's what it is. You're always going to be fanatical about your teams. But I took a step back this week and I kind of looked around. And I said, you know what, as an Eagles fan, and I've been a fan since '92, I've been running with this team since they were the Kelly Greens. For the most of my life, most of my time watching them, they have been successful. They've made the play. Now, they only have the one Super Bowl, and thank God they did. But they've been a successful franchise for most of those years. They've been in the playoffs. They've had chances. They've been in the hunt. They played in how many title games? NFC title games? I mean, goodness, at least 7 or 8 of them, that I can remember. They've been in 2 Super Bowls. They won a Super Bowl. And there's fans of other franchises, the Bills, the Vikings, all these other, can't even say that. So I think we should remember that we are privileged in that way, that this franchise will find ways. It looks bad at times. Last year was horrendous. That was as bad as it gets. And to go from that to this in 1 year, one off season, you get your coach, you get the right, and you're in the playoffs the next year. Now, you can say, oh, you're luck, whatever. You still got in. You won the games you had to win to get in, and they did it. Other teams didn't. Minnesota didn't. Indianapolis didn't. Some of these other teams with talent didn't do it. We can lament about not getting Justin Jefferson all we want. Justin Jefferson hasn't played a playoff game yet with the Vikings since he's been in the league. It's not his fault. He's a talented wide out. He's one of the best wide receivers in the game. That franchise hasn't been in the playoffs since they drafted him, to the point that they got rid of the guys who drafted him in their staff. They're gone now. Okay? That shows you how thin this could be. Success in this league, it doesn't come easy. I don't care how you do it. If you're a division title, if you win a wild card, there's been wild card teams that have gone to the Super Bowl. There's been wild card teams that won the Super Bowl. Okay? The fact is you get in. You position yourself to get into the dance, and anything can happen. You can't win if you don't even get in. Now, again, today, they could lose. All right? They could lose, but then it's still a stepping stone. It's still giving these young players and young coaches playoff experience, and that's big going forward. There's other young teams that can't say that. The Eagles can. Chargers aren't in the playoffs. For as great a season as Herbert had, they're not in the playoffs because they called a timeout in overtime. Right? That's a first-year head coach that made a huge boneheaded mistake in a big moment. They're not in the playoffs because of that. The Eagles are. So I think we do need to take stock, and we need to see, okay, this is where we are, and regardless of what happens today, and I think there's a chance they win the game. Hey, call me crazy. I think there's a chance they win the game if they play their game offensively and they can do what the things that we know they can do. They have a shot to win this game. They have a puncher's chance. And I know Brady will be real happy to lose the Eagles. Oh boy, and his fans, boy, he loses the Eagles again. Hey, Pierre. Right. But no, I regardless, they're in a good spot, and they're going to get better. In my mind, they're going to get better, because they're going to make the moves this offseason that they've made. The one thing I know about this franchise, and right or wrong, they are aggressive in the offseasons. They make moves. They make trades. They make draft day moves, right? Trade up, trade whatever. They're one of the more mobile teams when it comes to the draft in the NFL. I mean, Giant fans are just they even today, they're so upset that that the Eagles jumped in to get Devontae Smith, which was a great pick, and he's what a terrific just person he is and player. And he's going to get better. That's the scary thing. For all those guys they missed on, for the J. Jaws and the Ragers, and they got to go winning Smith. And give him credit. They got it, and they had to make a move to get him, and they did. And I wanted him. I wanted, looking at him in college at Alabama, the Slim Reaper, I said, oh, boy, if the Eagles have a chance to get him. Oh, and because I knew what a great player he was and what a great person he is. He has that mental makeup, even though he's undersized. He is physical, and he makes those tough catches. Are you kidding me with some of those toe tap catches he makes? Man, it's like Chris Carter back in the day, former Eagle who did much better things with the Vikings. But listen, again, I'm happy to be in the playoffs. I'm happy to watch a playoff game with my team in it today, when many other fans can't say that. And regardless of what happens, I'm not saying, if they lose, I don't care. Yeah, of course I do, because I want them to win. As a fan, I want to see a win today. But I know that they're still building to something, and that's an exciting thing for me. Listen, all I ever want is for the Eagles to matter, for the seasons to matter, to get to the playoffs, to have a chance at the postseason, maybe division titles, right? Let's take it away from Dallas next season. Let's yank that away from them next season, right? It's exciting, and again, for most seasons that I've watched them, they have been successful. They've gotten there. They've made playoff runs, deep playoff runs, and that's a great thing. When you can say that your team is among those teams that are talked about as playoff teams just about every year. Listen, the Eagles in the last, what was it, the last 5 of 7 years or whatever it's been, the Eagles were in the playoffs. They were one of the few teams in the NFC that could say that. All these other franchises can't say that. Even in the AFC, some of those franchises can't say that they've done that. The Eagles have done it. And that's a testament to who they have in the front office, even though we criticize a lot. And we have a right to. We're fans, right? But they're there. They're there more years than not. And that's a hard thing to do. It is. Again, 30-plus years some of these teams without winning a playoff. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And even that game came down to the wire last night for the Bengals. the Lions. That's crazy. That's insane. 91 was the last time they won a playoff game, for God's sakes. I mean, and it was against Dallas of all teams. It was Barry Sanders. Man, that's futility. I know we complain. That's futility. Going 30-plus years without a playoff win. I know the Eagles had their time back in the day, right? But man, I couldn't imagine. That would be a bit much. That would be a bit much. And I give credit to those fans because they've gone through a lot. They really have. And I know Jake's there. Viking fans. I know. I remember that game against the Falcons, and I wanted the Vikings to win that game. Randall. I wanted him to be in the Super Bowl. Oh, that would have been a much better Super Bowl if it was the Vikings. Oh, the freaking Dirty Birds got in there, and it was the Broncos won that game as soon as they stepped on the field that night. I know, and I do sympathize. Listen, the Bills fans had to see 4 straight Super Bowl losses. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the Eagles go to 4 I know we had our NFC title game losses streak going, right? 3 in a row, and then they finally beat the Falcons to go to the Super Bowl. But 4 straight Super Bowl losses. Now, that's a lot of success to go there 4 straight years. But losing all 4 and that wide right, that was my first Super Bowl, that wide right at Norwood, Super Bowl 25. That was my first one that I saw, and I've been watching them ever since. So I do think we have to take stock and say, yeah, this has been a successful franchise. They have some hardware now. They have a Lombardi in the case, right? We'd like to see them get more. Why stop at 1, right? But I think they're building something good. I really do. And I speak from experience because I saw it before when Andy got here, many years ago, watching that rise, right? And they had an all-timer as a defensive coordinator as well. I can't really say that we have that right now, but there's talks about him being a head coach somewhere. Hey, if they lose him and get Vic Fangio to come here to be a defensive coordinator, that would be a nice thing. That would be a good thing too. I would approve of that. But we'll see. Listen, we got a playoff game today in Tampa against the defending champs. And the last time we played Brady in a playoff game when he was a defending champ, we know what happened. That happened. Okay? The strip sack happened, which I have a picture of on my wall over there. The Philly special and everything that made that game so special and that moment so special. And I will always say this. I will always say that not just winning it, but beating that team. And the GOAT, no one can say anything. I know people are saying about who we didn't beat now. No one can ever say the Eagles won a Super Bowl. Who'd you play? Oh, yeah, you played the defending champs in the greatest dynasty ever in Brady and Belichick. Yeah. It makes it that much more sweet. So listen, the Eagles win this game today, find a way to win and beat Brady again. Oh, I don't know if he'll shake Jalen Hurts' hand or not, but it will still be a great moment, regardless of what happens next week at Green Bay. And listen, enjoy it. It's a ride. That's what it is. Today's going to be interesting. Again, you're going to be, listen, whatever number seed they are, you watch a game, you still get that. You get that just pit in the stomach feeling every time you're watching a playoffs. That's what makes these playoffs so great. That's what makes the NFL playoffs what they are. It's one and done. It's it. It's not a series. It's not this and that, even though there's been some excruciating series around here over the years. And Hawks and Trae Young and his bad hair. And look at the Hawks. They suck now. You just... Ben. But anyhow, but it's a one and done type of situation. And that's why you always say they still have a shot. Because it's one game. Hey, maybe you line up and that team beats you 5 out of 6 times. But that 6th time, you have a shot. Just got to get out there, play your game, and hopefully we see a win. But irregardless, they're going to be set up. They're on a good spot right now. And that's a great thing. Getting that experience today, wonderful. Giving these young players and young coaches experience in the playoffs against that team, a defending champion with the Temple Tough coaches that they have and everything like that. Listen, it's a great team. And it's a great thing that we get to play them right off the bat, right? Because it's experience, and this is what you get. This is the building block, right? This is a good thing going forward into years to come because listen, not only did you make the playoffs, but then you went up against the defending champs and you learn what it is to play against teams like that in the playoffs. This is all good. If they lose, it won't be very good, but it's still good. You got there and you have the experience to go forward and to grow from that, like the plants, that Syria, the roots. We're all going to have plants at some point. The Eagles, I know they're very good at these type of things. They need to just sell potted plants with the Eagle logo on the pot. All Eagle fans will have that in the house, right? Anyhow, enjoy today, Eagle fans. It's going to be interesting. It's quite ironic that we see our old buddy Tom again today, but it should be a good game. And I think the Eagles have a shot to get a win. Will they? We'll have to see. We'll see how the game plays out. If they get off to a slow start, it's probably not going to look good. But if they can get off to a better start than they have in weeks, past, they're going to have a shot. You have a shot against that team with the injuries they have, and you have a shot. You have a shot. But you wouldn't have had a shot at all if you didn't make the playoffs. So we're happy we made it in. Let's make the most of it now. Let's make the most of it now. And if anything else, either get a win or give Tom a scare. Give him and those Buck fans. And I know a lot of Eagle fans are going to be. I know the Eagle fans are taking over that stadium. But give them a scare today. Give them, if anything else, get in there, give them a scare. Rattle them a bit. Remind them that we're here. I do think they have a shot. I really do. But we'll see. But anyway, I'll see you at some point after the game, and we'll talk about it, and we'll look ahead to the future. And like I said, the outlook looks good. The future forecast, if I had to say it, looks pretty good. Looks pretty green. So, with the growing plants and the green. So, anyhow, we'll see you. Let's go Birds as always. Festive's happy for the game. I'm happy. We're going to watch. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully our Birds get a win. They go 2-1 against good old Tom. All time in the playoff situation would be fun. And it's going to be interesting. We'll see. So we'll see how things play out in Tampa Bay today against the defending champion Bucs. Go Birds, and I'll see you at some point after the game.